When we think of Acadian leaders in Prince Edward Island in the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century, the people that come in mind are all men, in fact. We talk about Father Bellecourt, Gilbert Buyot, Henri Blanchard, Father Pierre-Paul Arsenault. And of course, that was kind of normal in those days because in the North American society and society in general, all associations were led by men, educated men, mainly priests, lawyers, teachers, because most of the teachers for a long while were men. So it took a while before women became involved, but they were home. It was understood that the role of women was raising their family, and usually the families were quite big, so they had a full-time job at home, and the men would have the time maybe or the energy to work in organizations to further develop the community. Even if women were not involved in all these associations and they stayed in the homes usually, it's not to say that they didn't contribute to the development of the Acadian communities. In fact, they were the ones often who became the first to educate their children on the importance of the French language, of keeping it, of Acadian identity. And also when the St. Thomas Aquinas Society had branches in different little villages to raise money for the society, usually it was the women who were in charge of that. And starting around 1900, a great number of women went in the teaching field. So most of Acadians, when they went to school, they had as teachers women. And also there were all these nuns in the convents in the Acadian areas in Rustico, Miscouche and Tignish, who played an important role in the teaching of the French language. And even in the history department, you just have to think of Sister Antoinette Desroches, how she, the contribution she made for the teaching and also the preservation of Acadian heritage on the island. Starting in the 1960s mainly, and even more in the 1970s, then you will have women getting much more involved in community organizations and even taking the head of organizations, something that you wouldn't have seen in the 1930s and 40s, because that was the period when women across the world almost wanted to take their place in society, get involved in politics, and that's what happened in many Acadian communities also. For instance, until the 1970s, all the trustees of school districts were men. There were a few exceptions, of course, but starting in the 70s, more and more women got involved, and at one point there were more women on the boards than men. And also the St. Thomas Aquinas Society, the main organization for Acadians and Francophones on the island, starting in the 1980s, you had a number of very dynamic women who became the president of the society. So when you think of it and you look around saying who are the people working in Prince Edward Island for the promotion and the preservation of Acadian culture and the French language, a lot of them are women. I think of Maria Bernard from Montcamel, I think of Eileen Chiasson-Pendergast from West Prince. In Surrey, you had Clarisse Gallant, who did a lot of work to keep the French language into her community. There was also Berthe Blanchard in Charlottetown, who was very active with the local branch of the St. Thomas Aquinas Society. And of course, Noëlla Arsenault and Madeleine Petitpas, who went as far as the Supreme Court of Canada to have the right to open a French school in Summerside, and many, many others that I don't have time to mention that have contributed and are still contributing to the French and Acadian community here in Prince Edward Island.